want the people to know that they still have 2 out of 3 branches of the government working for them, and that ain't bad.
A blue sploosh for the Congress and a red wave for everything else. It's the Arch Advocate Podcast. I'm going to be breaking up today's show into several different episodes. So hopefully, if you're listening on the podcast, that you get this one first and listen to it first. I will be sure to number it per episode as it goes, so that when you're looking in your menu, you can see the different breakdowns. A couple of different things. Now, listen, I'm very happy to bring to you this news. We have a number of years more of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her crazy babbling nonsense. I could not be happier about this. Look, that district, it's in the Bronx, and it's overwhelmingly Democrat. Like, there wasn't, I mean, of course there was a chance, but look, the person that was the incumbent, who also, by the way, just a quick side note, got a good number of votes, right? And you have to think about that. Like, if that person didn't win the right to vote or the right to run from the DNC, then why did he get any votes whatsoever? Different topic though. The fact is, good news, right? I don't want to take away from this. Like, we have to keep this in mind. Ocasio-Cortez is a gold mine of just sound bites. She's hilarious. And the thing that makes it so hilarious is that she's like trying her best to sound smart. And now we get, 3 or 4 more years of that, right? At least 3 years. I mean, I know that some Congress people have to run every 3 years or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's years. Maybe it's 2 years. I don't know. But it's no less than 2 years that we get to listen to Ocasio-Cortez spew her nonsense, right? Perfect. I couldn't be happier about that. Bad news is Larry Elder, the libertarian that was running for governor of New York, didn't even come close. In fact, nobody came close. In fact, Andrew Cuomo won by such a huge margin that it's like, you remember when Saddam Hussein was still alive and he would announce his election results and he'd be like, oh, look at me, I got 97% of all the votes. It's like, okay, no, there's no way. There's no way that you know what I mean? You pressured people, you cheated somehow. There's no way that 97% of the people voted for one person. That's impossible. You mean to tell me that everybody in your country likes you? That's impossible. People tend to be split right down the middle. It's like what, Kim Jong-un or or whatever his name is, like, oh, look at me, I got 99.9% of all the votes. It's like, dude, come on, you're a dictator. Like, don't try to put don't sugarcoat it. We all see what's happening here. Just come out and say it. Like, you're a dictator and this is how you're running your country. Like, we will respect you more if you just be honest. Right? Beto O'Rourke, thank God. This is what's funny. Now, I am not a fan of money in politics. Right? Like, I think the only place that socialism should be practiced is in campaign finance. Right? That's how you fix it. Right? Because socialism destroys everything it touches. So let campaign finance be run on a socialist, like one pot of money, and anybody who wants to run can get a slice of that pie. Right? It would fix everything, right? Because money in politics is bad. Therefore, if you apply a socialist system to it, since socialism destroys everything it touches, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's how you fix money in politics, is let those people live out what they preach. But anyways, Ted Cruz spent like $10 million on his campaign. That's an ungodly amount of money, right? $10 million. Like, with $10 million, you could build like 100 houses. You know what I mean? Like, cheap, small, cheap houses that, I don't know, like, you go buy a cheap piece of land and just put 100 houses on it, and it's like, boom, here you go, there's 100 houses. $10 million, it's a lot of money. It's an ungodly, obscene amount of money. And the fact that that's like normal, that like that's a problem to me. You know what I mean? Ted Cruz spent $10 million on a election campaign. I don't like that. But what's awesome about that is Beto O'Rourke spent over $70 million. Now keep in mind, Beto O'Rourke did not invent anything, right? He doesn't own SpaceX. He didn't invent, microchips. He's not, you know what I mean? Like, he's not a businessman. So wherever that $70 million came from, it didn't come from his pocket. But there are pockets that it did come from, namely one George Adolf Hitler Soros, right? A guy who literally turned Jews into the Nazis. That's not a conspiracy theory. Like that's everybody that everybody that knows. It's like, no, that's information that's right out in the open. They're not afraid to admit it. $70 million he spent. Right, this guy who's like pro-socialism and open borders and getting rid of ICE and all this stuff. It's like, you just spent $70 million and you lost on a probably rigged election. Right? Like, that's so much money. And so it's not so much. Listen, here's the thing. Let me just say this right up front. I don't like it that everybody in California and New York and all these other places have an opinion about Ted Cruz or Beto O'Rourke. I don't like that because it's like, dude, those are people running for the Senate in Texas. And unless you live in Texas, man, shut up. It doesn't have anything to do with you. It doesn't affect you, right? It doesn't, those are Texas senators. Whoever wins is going to win for Texas. Doesn't have anything to do with you. So the idea that people chime in and talk about it's like, come on, is this really, you've got, remember that aged famous person, Alyssa Milano? She was like famous, I think like 10 years ago or something like that. Matter of fact, let me quit spitballing that. Let me just look this up. Young Justice, Hall Pass. Okay, Hall Pass was 2011. That is a movie that I heard of. She was not the star of that, man. Beverly Hills Chihuahua Part 2. Okay, so that's, Kick Buttowski, all right, the cartoon for kids. DC Showcase, Superman versus Shazam, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, The Spectre. Oh, Castle. She was on an episode of Castle in 2010. You see what I'm saying? It's like, you're not the star of Castle, right? The dude from Firefly was. And great actor, by the way. One of my favorites. Okay, My Name is Earl. Okay, I've heard of that one. 2007 to 2008. Charmed. Okay, so like that was when... Charmed was when she was a star of something. That was the last time she had a lead role in something, and that was from 1998 to 2006. That's 12 years ago, so I wasn't wrong. 12 years ago, Alyssa Milano was famous, and wow, why did I go down that rabbit hole? Oh, it's because she was championing the cause of Beto O'Rourke. It's like, lady, you live in California. Why are you talking about this? You know what I mean? It doesn't have anything to do with you. But I'm going to talk about it because that's kind of what I do. But this is the thing. This guy spent $70 million and trotted out all of these washed up, aged, wrinkly, old, people that used to be famous. And it's like, well, granted, Alyssa Milano is way far and above more famous than me. Right? I can't look into the camera and say like, oh, I was famous in 2006. Right? But still, it's like, yeah, you were famous, but you're not anymore. So anyways, Beto O'Rourke just lost, not the Senate, he just lost $70 million. 700 homes that you could build, probably more if you got Jimmy Carter on the case, right? With Homes for Humanity. How much does it cost to build a cheap home? It's not very much. You need rebar, concrete, lumber, copper wiring, and some shingles. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, you know, if you're buying wholesale, it doesn't cost that much. He spent $70 million and lost it. So not only did he lose the Senate, he lost $70 million of other people's money. Now, this is significant because they're already trotting him out saying, oh, well, this is good, right? Because the Democrats and the liberals and the progressives, like, they're all trying to find their silver lining. Oh, this is good, they say, because now he can run for president in 2020. Here's the problem with this. It has been a long-standing, unwritten law, right? Just a rule that was never written down, but everybody understood it. If you run for president and lose, you may not run again. That's why Al Gore did not come back in 2004 and run to defeat George Bush. You know what I mean? It's why Michael Dukakis didn't come back and run. It's why, it's why Mitt Romney, who only lost the presidential race because what's his name came out and said, Joe Biden said, oh, this guy's gonna put all the black people back in chains, and somehow that magic spell worked. But like, Mitt Romney was the favorite. You know what I mean? And he did not run again. Why? It's because if you lose, then you're a loser. And nobody wants to run a loser. That's why Hillary Clinton running for president for the second time was such a big deal, is because it's like, but you lost to your friend. You lost to Barack Obama. That's your friend. He's in the same party. You could not even win against your friend. You think you're going to win against your enemy? You know what I mean? That's why it was so bizarre. That's as far as I know, except for like the very early part of American history, like that's never happened. Because it was an unwritten law, like if you lose, then you're a loser, and we do not run losers. We don't run losers here. It's like why Colin Kaepernick can't get a job in the NFL. It's like, because it's not because you kneel or anything. It's because you're not a good you're not good at your job. You're a loser. Therefore, we're not going to pay you $30 million a year or whatever. Right? So anyways, Beto O'Rourke, they're already talking about like, oh, this is good. It's good that he lost $70 million and of other people's money and lost the race for the Senate, because now he can run for president. It's like, yes, please. Please, Democrats, keep on losing. As I said before, the old saying goes, like, if you want to be successful, just figure out what you need to do to fail, and then just don't do that. But it's like, you people are figuring out how to fail and doing exactly that. You ran Hillary Clinton, who was already an established loser, and of course you lost. So yes, please, Democrats, please keep chanting that, like, oh, this is good news. We're going to take this loser, and we're going to run him against Donald J. Trump. Okay. Please do that. Now already, the Democrats are gloating that they've regained the House majority in the Congress, right? Now, as the opening credits went, by the way, name that movie. If you can't name that movie, find yourself, it's the greatest movie of all time. If you can't name it, go find yourself another podcast, all right? Spoiler alert, it's Mars Attacks. Anyways, and by the way, everybody was in that movie. Like everybody, I mean, like, I know that you didn't know this, but you were actually in that movie. Like literally everybody was in that movie. Greatest movie of all time. But this is the thing. These people are so happy that they got their little blue sploosh in the Congress. It's like, okay, you know, granted, I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that would happen, right? So good for you. You got one. But starting off, let me break this down for you. There are 3 branches of government. Now, dear liberal, can you name them without Googling it? I should have rephrased that a completely different way. I should have said, Do you know how many branches of government there are without Googling it? Because I don't think, like, reading the comments on the Young Turks, it's like, I don't think these people really understand how the system works. How many branches of government there are? There's 3. Some could make the argument that there is a fourth branch called the corporate branch. I would probably tend to agree with most of those arguments. But I digress. There are officially 3 branches of government, and they go like this: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, right? 3 equal but separate. It's called the separation of powers. 3 equal branches, equal in power, separate responsibilities. The executive has their responsibility, but it tends to have the most amount of power because the president can stop anything, right? Stuff can go through Congress, and then it can go through the Senate, and if it makes it all the way there, it goes to the resolute desk for a signature. And if the president says, nope, that's the end of that, right? And then there's the judicial branch, that's the Supreme Court, right? And then there's the legislative, right? So you have the legislative is the people who make the rules, right? The judicial branch are the people who enforce the rules, and the executive branch is its own thing as it applies to the rules. And you get into, like, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill and executive privilege and all that stuff, but equal but separate powers. Now, here's the thing. If you were going to have to pick 2 out of 3, and I think that this would be an easy question for anybody to answer. If you're going to pick, like, all you can have is 2 out of 3, which would you pick? Well, that's pretty simple. We would want, the Supreme Court, right, and the executive. That's what you would want, right? If you can only have the Congress or the Senate, which one would you rather have? I think that's a pretty simple one, right? Everybody knows it's like Congress starts it, the Senate finishes it. And nothing gets to the president's desk unless it goes through the Senate. So if you're going to have one or the other, right? Like, dear Democrats, you liberals, you can come on and you can leave a comment on this podcast. You can go to my website, archadvocate.com, and go down, leave an email, or leave a message on this YouTube broadcast and answer. Like, if you knew yesterday or 2 days ago, like, okay, listen, I'm going to wave a magic wand here. We're going to give you whichever one you want, but you can only pick one. Do you want the Congress, or do you want the Senate? Well, you're a fool if you say that you wanted the Congress. Nobody wants that, right? So, yes, Democrats, congratulations, right? You somehow pulled out a meaningful gain in the Congress, but you've lost the Senate. You lost. You're not anywhere close on the Senate. So now the conservatives, my people, we have the executive branch, we have the Supreme Court, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's so close to death that she has a tendency to pass out in meetings. When old people start falling asleep all the time, it means they're on their way out, right? So pretty soon, that's going to be a 3rd Supreme Court nomination, and guess who it's probably going to be? It's probably going to be that nice Catholic lady, right? We have the executive. We have the Supreme Court. Of the state legislators that Barack Obama lost 1,000 of, we still have 2/3 of those people. We have the Senate. We have the governorships. Yes, you picked up a couple of governorships, but you're nowhere near 50-50. So we've got everything except the Congress. And let me just add this before we go any further, because this is going to be the end of this particular broadcast. And we're going to do some other ones to point out some other facts here. You Democrats think that now that you've gained some seats there in the Congress, that now the impeachment will finally happen. Well, here's the thing about that, because I know that you people like to misuse that word quite a bit. Most of the liberals, I think in America, most liberals think that that word impeach means to remove the president from office. I mean, Tessa, everybody's got liberal friends, right? Go ask them. Go ask them if President Bill Clinton was impeached. Almost every, like, I have never once ran into a liberal where because I do that pretty often when talking to my liberal friends, like, well, what about when President Bill Clinton was impeached? They say, oh, no, he wasn't impeached. It's like, dude, not only was he impeached, he was found guilty of lying to the American people, right? The problem is that these liberals think that because now the Congress is able to begin impeachment proceedings, it's like, well, you still have a whole bunch of problems. You have to get a prosecutor, right? You have to get, you've got the special investigator, Bob Mueller, that old drunk. 2 years later, now that you've gained the Congress, now is going to be the time that the Mueller investigation information is going to come out. And even if you think that you have something, which you don't, because they've had the facts for 2 years. They've had all the facts for 2 years. And the only thing they've been able to come up with is punishing people in Trump's circle for other stuff. Stuff that had nothing to do with the collusion or pissing, whores, pissing Russian whores or anything like that. It all had to do with stuff that they did a long time ago, right? So these Democrats, like you Democrats, you progressives and whatever, like you think that this is going to be good in your favor, but keep in mind what happened when the Republicans impeached a sitting U.S. president over nothing, right? He should have been impeached for rape because he raped 16 women, but he wasn't. He was impeached for lying to the American people. And it had a devastating effect on the Republicans. Now, you Democrats, you want to impeach a sitting U.S. president. I don't think this is going to go for you the way you think it's going to go. Furthermore, you then have the problem of finding the man guilty. And even if you do that, because remember, Bill Clinton was found guilty. And he was impeached and found guilty, right? You then have a whole nother problem. If you want to remove him from office, you have to go through the Senate. The Senate has to vote on whether or not to remove him from office. And I hate to be the one to break this to you, but you don't have the Senate votes. Anyways, congratulations on getting a wife beater, Keith Ellison, elected to the Michigan or Minnesota? It's Minnesota Attorney General. Not a small position. I mean, Attorney General, that's a big position. But it's Minnesota, and you're going to get a win there no matter who you got. But and Gavin Newsom. All right, listen, people of California, my people. If you thought Jerry Brown was bad, oh boy. Gavin Newsom is he's like the mayor of San Francisco. The city that literally has so much human feces that there's an app for that. That's Gavin Newsom. Congratulations, California. Gavin Newsom is your new governor. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. Boy. Anyways, that's this episode of the show. There's too many topics that I can't put all the topics into one heading on the podcast. And I want to make sure that each one of these concepts gets broken down and gets the attention that it deserves, because there's a lot of really cool things and weird things and controversial things that happen. I want to give each one of them the attention that they deserve. So, for those of you that may be new to the program, hey, listen, hit subscribe, would you? That's the biggest thing that you can do for me. Hit that subscribe button. For those of you that have enjoyed the show for a while now, hey, if you want to support the show, if you haven't already, go to archadvocate.com, become a Patreon supporter, couple of bucks a month, 10, 20 bucks a month, whatever. Or if you just want to throw some cash like on a one-time thing, you can do that on PayPal. That's at arch-advocate.com. And for you newbies, unless you really just love this first episode, no matter what you do, please hit subscribe either on the podcast or whatever. And be looking forward to the next episode. We'll talk to you in a little bit.